Episode 141. He must be angry. Jade looked away and reached out her hand to take off Dario's shirt. When her finger accidentally touched his chest, she could clearly feel the motion of his breathing and heat of his skin. Dario looked at her indifferently, staring at the pajamas she was wearing. He suddenly felt a little thirsty. Although her pajamas were not too revealing, they were enough to show her good figure. When Jade finally took off Dario's pants, she thought she was free, but Dario did not plan to let her go. He pressed her hand on the edge of his underwear. A low, cruel voice sounded in her ear. There's still one more piece of clothing. Even though it was separated from her by his underwear, she could feel what was inside. Under her palm, it grew bigger and hotter, inch by inch. Jade wanted to withdraw her hand, but Dario refused to let go. She did not dare to look him in the eyes. Her heart beat fast. If you do not help me take off the last piece of clothing, I will not answer your question. Dario leaned close to her ear and said seriously. His eyes became more intense as she touched him. No. Jade retracted her hand and immediately hid in the bed shyly. She exhaled and said, Forget it, Mr. Foster, I don't want to ask. Even though she wanted to know the answer, she really could not do what he wanted. Then you should never ask, he said in a cold voice. Jade squeezed her hand into a fist. She did not want to care, but the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. For a moment, she didn't know where her courage came from. She suddenly lifted the blanket and stared at him, seeing red. Mr. Foster, why are you always like this? You don't care about how I feel. I've been in the crew for half a month, yet you don't text me or call me. Every time I contact you first. Why are you always like this? You treat me so well all of a sudden, and then you deliberately treat me so coldly. Jade's breath was quick, and her heart was beating constantly after she finished speaking. But she had to finally ask because she could just not take it anymore. Why did he suddenly do something that moved her every time she decided to ignore him? If he were going to keep doing that, then he might as well be cold to her from the start. His behavior made her heart very confused. She felt like she would go crazy if this continued. Dario did not answer her question. Instead, he asked in a very calm tone, I am very good to you, aren't I? Although Dario had guessed that Jade would be angry, he did not expect her to be so emotional. When she heard him say this, she immediately choked on her breath and became unable to speak at all. She was shocked he'd even asked such a question and looked at him severely. What did he mean by this? Did he mean that he did not want to be nice to her at all? Did he treat everyone like this? Was he just doing his duty as a husband? Even if it wasn't for her, he would still be like this. Was that so? For a moment, Jade's heart became even more frustrated and disappointed. She looked at him angrily and finally could not help but punch him hard. She started to ramble. Why don't you be nicer to me? If you don't like me and want to be with another woman, I definitely won't stop you. Jade said all the things she held in her heart and the questions she had before. Other women? Dario narrowed his eyes and asked. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes, but he finally realized why Jade was acting so strangely all of a sudden. It seemed that she was jealous. Mr. Foster, you don't need to explain. I saw everything. Jade covered her ears as she spoke. She did not plan to give him any chance to explain. But Dario did not seem to intend to even try. He simply answered, I do not want to explain. Also, what is it that you saw? Jade was stunned. It was as if something was stuck in her throat. It made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Why did he not even try to explain? Was it because there was no need? Nothing. I'm going to sleep. Jade looked at him angrily, especially when she saw the indifference on his face. She was just too sad. You are the only woman I have. Dario pulled her body closer to him. Jade was shocked by his sudden words. Was he expressing his love to her? Still, Jade had concerns, and she could not help but ask, Then why didn't you make love to me yesterday? After all, last time, she was wearing such sexy pajamas. When Jade said these words, she immediately regretted it. She hurriedly covered her mouth. Damn it! Why did she mention this matter for no reason? Wouldn't this show that she was too lustful? No, this was too embarrassing. She was clearly only thinking about it silently. How could she say it out loud? Impulsiveness was indeed a devil. And this person in front of her was even more devilish than the devil himself. Dario raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. He could not help but reach out his hand to touch her blushing face. "Do you look forward to having sex with me?" "I did not say that." Jade shrank away from him and avoided his hand. She felt almost as if she would be electrocuted if he touched her. This was bad. Everything seemed to be so off. Wasn't she just questioning everything? Why did it seem like their roles had now changed? "Do you really not want to?" Dario reached out his hand and gently held her delicate chin. He turned her face back to look at the passion in his eyes. Jade lowered her head. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly as if she were afraid of something. "I don't want to," Jade replied decisively. "Why don't you tell me what you really think?" Dario's eyes suddenly darkened with a sense of loss and coldness. "This is what I really think." Jade bit her lower lip and answered shakily. She clearly knew that her own true thoughts were otherwise, but she could not say them out loud. "Do you have any other questions?" Dario asked coldly. Jade grabbed the sheet nervously and took a deep breath. In the end, she shook her head. "Then let's sleep." Dario turned off the light and laid down. The room turned dark. Jade sat beside him, feeling uncomfortable. She could not see his expression clearly and did not know if he was angry or not. But looking at him just before, she felt sure he must be angry.